Hello, this is Kimberly Stratman of To the Point Coach. I'm a certified life coach, certified retirement life coach also, and my specialty is helping individuals create systems and processes that serve them wherever they are in life. Right now, I'm really concentrating on first responders, their spouses, and families as they're approaching retirement so they can go into retirement with confidence, with a plan. Doesn't have to be a written in concrete plan. It needs to be flexible and adaptable because let's face it, we retire pretty young and so we got a lot of years to live. So our plan does need to be flexible. This video today is inspired by a networking luncheon I attended earlier. And as I was looking around about 100 people, I noticed that some of them are pretty old. And then I realized that they are retired from their original career and they are now doing their next career, which is what I'm doing also. And then that got, the whole thought process going of how old am I? But anyway, I digress. I wanted to bring information to y'all to get your brains really thinking about this because as first responders, we do tend to retire younger than the average American, oftentimes in our 50s. And that's after working a full career. That's after working, a good 30 plus years. And you add in the individuals that had military beforehand and then their police work, they're still retiring in their 50s and have a lot of productive years ahead of them. So I have some numbers I wanted to throw at you, and I just want you to think about this. And is this what you thought? I mean, is this, because remember, we make decisions on what our thoughts are. So if we're not thinking about accurate information, if we don't have good information to make our decisions, then we could be making some skewed decisions in our lives. So let me read this to you from the National Bureau of Economic Research. This is also reported by Forbes magazine. About 20% of those aged 50 to 54 and about 25% of those aged 55 to 59 are self-employed. From there, the numbers dramatically increase, with about 30% from age 60 to 64, 46 for those 65 to 69, and 60% of those 70 to 74, and 68% of those 75 to 79 being self-employed. That's a lot of people in that age that are self-employed. Now, our first thought, because we're cops, our first thought might be to go to the negative, and we think that's because nobody's going to hire older people. That's because of ageism. That's because, they're worn out and tired and lazy and all the rest of the stuff. Well, there is some of that. There's some of that in play. But let's look at the other side of that. Let's look at the side of the individuals that are going back to work, maybe for the money, but that's really not very high on that. Individuals that are going back to work just for the money tend to get hired by somebody else. They're not really willing to take the risk to start their own business. Individuals that start their own businesses after retirement, according to News Daily, they say they bring significant experience, capital, and time into the business that they start. That same source says 2/3 of Americans want to start a small business after retirement. As we live longer, we want to work longer and we want to feel productive longer. So I'm curious, how many of you thought that? How many of you thought when you took off your uniform, whether it's fire, police, EMT, maybe emergency room doctor, military, emergency room nurse, how many of you thought that starting a business after you retired would be because you just want to keep working? I know a lot of us, when we're done working, we're like, oh, I'm done. I'm just done working. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. Well, that brings up the next point. And research shows that when individuals start their own business, it isn't necessarily because they want to do what they want to do. It's actually because they don't want to do what they don't want to do. So that's a little different. Think about that. They don't want to do what they don't want to do any longer. And so they start their own business. Would you have guessed that money wasn't the number one thing to get a retiree to start their own business. I know with the pension issues, with the economy, with the investment issues, and all the rest of that stuff, a lot of first responders are very concerned about their security, as we should be. And a lot of people really didn't save and invest or become debt free before they retired. So going back to work for the money is obviously there on the table and important to a lot of people. But most of the retirees state they did it because they wanted to be part of community. They wanted to feel productive. They felt they still had immense value to offer. They wanted to do something different than they have done. And then some of the individuals wanted to still do what they were doing, but they wanted to do it on their terms. So maybe they went back as a contract worker. So they still work for their same employee. They're still doing what they were doing, but they're doing it on less hours, flexible schedule, name their own price instead of the hourly wage they were making before, or maybe their hourly wage now instead of salary that they were working before. But that is another thing. I listed those numbers in the beginning of the percentages. And there are some experts that believe that those are even low because a lot of retirees do go back as contract workers for their previous employer. So whenever they are answering surveys, they state, I am an employee, when actually they are self-employed as a contract worker. So, what are the things that these retirees are doing? So, there are the things I think that come to mind a lot that's related to police or fire. They continue doing something that they've been doing. It's easier for them to get the job while they're still working. So it's easier to get a job with a county or a DA's office or an insurance company or a security company or something like that, or a really large entity that hires quite a few retirees. It's easier to get that job while you're still working. But what do people do outside of that? So I have a list going here. Very popular for retirees: photographer, blogger, artist, independent contractor. And then I was really kind of impressed with some of the other things that individuals do. Bed and breakfast owner, their home is paid off, or they start the retirement home and the money they make pays for the retirement home. A project-based consultant, because they have skills, they have their expertise that they did, and they're hired on as a project at a time. I know cities often hire first responders to go back on special event planning and stuff like that. Franchisee, academic tutor, and that is very interesting right there because a lot of people say, I'm done with people, I don't want to be around people, and they end up being tutors. They end up being bus drivers. I have a friend who is a crosswalk guard. So there's so many things out there that you can do. So I've had my essential oil business for years, and I know that I will always do it because I love it and I have a passion for it. I did not know 3 years ago when I retired that I was going to be a certified life coach for high performing women, a certified life coach for retirees, first responders. And I didn't know that I was going to gravitate towards group coaching for women living with ADHD. I had no idea 3 years ago I was going to do that. But by living a life of curiosity, by always staying open to opportunities, by kind of following what I'm interested in and not saying a hard no right away, not living scared, not staying in a box that we tend to put ourselves in, has really opened up doors for me. I mean, heck, I spend several hours a week with a horse now, and I'm learning all about that. And I've been asked to be an equine therapy assistant. Now, granted, all that means is I stand there and hold the horse, and I'm kind of like the safety officer of the situation. But even a year ago, that would not have been on my radar. So by saying yes and by being curious and honestly optimistic, being optimistic, thinking that I can have a good life. And yes, my department doesn't need me anymore, and I don't have any more value as a first responder, but life is still out there for me to live, and there's all kinds of opportunities. And when I was at that luncheon today, I really saw that. I saw that with the young people that were just starting out fresh and starting a business. And I saw that with the retirees that were there starting a business. And to hear them talk about it, it's like their baby, right? And it's something they want to do. They want to do this. And that's probably why they're going to be very successful. So I would be very curious, my first responders out there, well, heck, anybody, if you're watching this, I'd be very curious of what do you want to do whenever you retire? Have you thought about that? Are you selling yourself short on what your future could hold? Not only what you can get from it, but what you could give to the world. And I know a lot of us are tired of the world. A lot of us are tired of the crap in the world. But we are servants at heart, and we can continue to serve, and we can do it on our terms. And think about this also. I put 30 years into my department. My husband is at 33 years right now. When I retired, I didn't have anything to give my kids except a plaque and my badge, you know. When my husband retires, he's not going to have anything to give to the kids. People that have had a business for 30 years can leave a business to their children. Public servants, we don't leave a business to our children. Even if our children follow our footsteps in our career path, we're not leaving them anything. They're still at the mercy of the city, they're at the courts, of the media. If you start a business after you retire, and you retire somewhat young as a first responder, but even these people that are retiring and starting in their 60s and 70s, they're building successful businesses, and they can then leave that business to their children. How awesome is that? I can't tell you how many times I have wished that I had something to leave my children. Originally, I was going to leave them a large part of my pension. Well, that fell apart, that fell through. So all those years of thinking I was going to do that, like, I don't know, 25 years of thinking that, fell away. Building my own businesses, I can leave those to my kids. You can leave your business to your kids. So you can do something that you want to do. You cannot do something that you don't want to do. You can follow your passion. You can serve still. You can make some money. You can build a legacy for your children. Kind of like a win-win-win-win all the way around. So what are you going to do? What are your ideas? Now, I know that right after we retire, a lot of times we're like in retirement shock, and we just can't believe that, you know, we're not running out of the house early at night or early in the morning, late at night, in the middle of the night. We're on their weekends. We're not getting called back for court. We're not getting called back for anything. And we just really can't believe that. It's just, we're kind of in shock over that. We're kind of enjoying that. But there's a dirty little secret to retirement. And that is, we don't always love it. We don't always love all of it. So take control of your retirement. Control what you can. And I'm not saying become a control freak. I do want you to reduce the stress in your life, and I do want you to enjoy your time. But don't become a victim of life. Don't let yourself get bored. Don't let yourself get to where you feel like you're non-productive. Don't let yourself fall out of community and fall out of relationships. And also, please don't think all this is going to take care of itself, because it will not. I talk to clients every single day that are struggling with these, and they're like, I had no idea. I thought I already did the hard part. I thought retirement would be easy. And I was like, well, you know, maybe 40, 50, 60 years ago when you retired at 65 and you died at 70, maybe that was kind of easy, but that's not how life goes anymore. We're living longer also. So there's that. I would love to hear your plans. I would love to even hear your fears. Please like and subscribe to this channel and to this video. This is what I do. I serve first responders, their spouses, and their families. I help them think about things so they don't waste a lot of time, energy, money in retirement. I don't want their frustrations to build. I don't want that dirty little secret of retirement to bite them in the ass. I really want people to thrive, and I know that we can. We have enough to deal with that we don't have any control over. So let's put our time and energy into what we can. Thank you so much. This is Kimberly Stratman, To The Point Retirement Coach.